like this video, please give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button as well as the bell to be notified of future videos. Thank you.
Hello Internet, we are back. Let me always say I'm back. And I'm sitting here in Phuket, Thailand. This is the first interview I'm doing from Thailand. And I have a fantastic fellow here in front of me, Daniel Botwood. Now he can explain his name himself because he actually speaks French. I know because he tells me that he's sitting in a tent in France about 2 hours north of the Spanish border. Okay, fine. I'm sitting in Phuket in a hotel room because our studio isn't done yet. It's going to take quite a while. But this is fascinating to me, people, because let me explain to you why. I'm often asked, Chris, how do you know these people are telling you the truth who you're talking to? And I say, man, I don't care, because I tell you why not. Because all of you people who are watching here, you will know if it's nonsense. You will know, and you'll start talking about it. And yes, we had a few wankers. Some of them pretended to be Special Forces members. One guy said he was in 5 Recce. We had to find out that he was not in 5 Recce. In fact, his dad was in 5 Recce in a Salute Scout. And what people don't realize is in the background, we do check. In other words, if a guy comes to me and he says he's Special Forces, well, we refer him back to Special Forces, they check, and they know each other. And then they send him back or they send whoever they want us to talk to. Now, this was fascinating because I also read all your comments. I have to read it. By law, I have to read it. And a few weeks ago, we have a guy called Sarel Kutsia, I think, was out. And Sarel Kutsia was one of the few, probably the only one, but he says I shouldn't say that because he doesn't know. Tank aces. In other words, he was one of the few guys in the modern SADF who shot out 5 enemy tanks, which makes him superb. But he was speaking in Afrikaans. And that is my fault. Yeah, on that day, I just said to him, I said, Sarel, ja man, ek lus om Afrikaans te praat. And he said it's up and we started talking Afrikaans. I had so many complaints. You wouldn't believe. I had people from, you name a country in the world. There were people complaining. And they said to me, we have to redo it in English. And Sarel said to me, I'm a bit busy. And then we had a very nice comment here from a fellow in front of me, Daniel. He said he actually saw it. He saw it when Sarel's tank got hit by a shell because he was there. And now I'm going to introduce you to him. I'm going to let him speak. He's a very fascinating man. He has a lifestyle which most of you people can only dream about, including myself. When he introduced himself, Rebecca was sitting here next to me. We chased her away now. She's gone to have a foot and a face massage, which she has to do because, you know, the hotel has to recommend it to clients one day. Therefore, we can say that's business research. And you see, that is where lawyer crap come in. But he started talking about what he's doing with plants and things, and that really interested as well. So, Daniel, thank you. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate you. All of you people, if you have a story, come and tell us. Don't let it die with you. We are fascinated. We want to know. So can you tell me, Daniel, where did this start for you? Where did you grow up? Were your parents perhaps also in the Defence Force? Or were you just called up like all of us? What happened to you?
Well, I grew up in Komiki, which is on the Cape Peninsula, a little village. Yeah, it's funny. I wanted to be in the Navy. My stepfather was in the Navy. In fact, he was killed on the President Kruger, day before my 13th birthday, 18th of February. So anyway, but we were always fishing, playing on the beach, surfing, diving. I wanted to be in the Navy. Anyway, I got called up to one side. And just before, about a couple of weeks after I finished my matric, I cut my hair into a Mohican. Anyway, I was a bit of a Zol worker, you see, and I always was in trouble with the police. Anyway, they saw me with my Mohican, and they stopped it. They all climbed out, and they like, "What maak jy? with this hairstyle? And I said, well, I'm going into the army in 2 weeks' time, so I don't really care. And they said, oh, where have you been called up to? And I said, one side. And they all started laughing. They were rolling around laughing. I just said, good luck, Oki, like, you're going to cut there. So I get to one side. And just before that, I shaved everything off, so I was completely bald. Anyway, I get to one side, and after about 2 days, my head started to get sunburned. And it didn't look so good. And I'd wake up in the morning with my head stuck to my pillow with all the scabs. And by the end of the week, it looked horrible. Yes. So I was sent off to the medics. And they said, like, what the bloody hell are you doing cutting your hair so short, you know? So I didn't want to tell them I had a Mohican. I said to them I had lice. And then they were just like, what? Whoa, they took all my kit away. They gave me like super, like shampoo. They said, we're going to have to shave the whole platoon. We're going to have to shave you. And I'm like, shit, I've only been here 2 weeks. And now like all these oaks are going to have to be shaved because of me. And I'm like, it was everything I could do to convince them that the lice were gone. Like, oh no, then there's no more lice, I promise you. Anyway, that was funny as well, because I was always so tired during basics. Yes, they didn't give you any sleep. We were just running everywhere. I remember, like my notebook. The notebook was, you take notes, and every line was just like falling asleep. I was always the last oak out of bed. Anyway, it wasn't long before I had some guys standing around my bed, the Parat oak, saying, hey, you need to get out of bed earlier or we're going to fuck you up. And that would mean, like, I think soap in a sock, you know, and they come and they all murder you. Anyway, I said to them, listen, if you let me be the last oak out of bed, I'll clean the toilets all the time. And they were like, okay. No one wanted to clean the toilets. So, needless to say, I got to be the last oak out of bed every morning. But our platoon had the cleanest toilets in the regiment. The toilets were fucking spotless. And that's how we won. We had our first big regimental inspection. And we won the inspection because our toilet was so clean. It was like a, I don't know, an oracle to the gods. And now what? So we finished basics. And then after basics, we had all the keyring. I think we had all the other units come and try and take, you know, you could choose and everything. And I didn't want to be in the infantry. So I tried military police, and I was too short and skinny. I think I tried signalers. I was too stupid. And I tried, because the whole thing was to try and get a posting to Cape Town. Everyone is like, just act off, and whatever you do, try and get a posting as close to home as possible. And, you know, do as little as possible. So I tried State President's Guard, and I was too short, too skinny, too ugly, and English. So it's like, I remember one of the instructors saying, because I got my skit bulky, I was a good shot. And he's saying to me, hey, Botwood, why don't you want to stay with us? And I'm like, oh, I don't think I'm cut out for infantry. Anyway, it was shortly after that, then we saw the Rattles. And I was like, because I never knew anything about mechanized infantry. I didn't know what, you know. And I was like, oh, we get to operate these things. Okay, well, I want to shoot that thing. I want to shoot it. So, yeah, so I got selected on the 20 mil course. And then we did 20 mil. And also as a gunner, you have to do the comms. You have to operate the radio. So you're responsible for the maintenance of the radios in the vehicle. So that was also cool. Oh, and then they, it was, you could do the 90mm course. So I wanted to do that. I wanted to be a 90mm gunner. I still remember it was Lieutenant Ferreira. I was the last guy accepted onto the course because he had to be, they took only the best oaks. Like, and I remember him looking at me and he was like, he threw a lighter at me. That's it. He just threw it at me. Wham. And I caught it, you see. So he's impressed. And he said, like, what's that in Afrikaans? And I said, it's a lichte. He said, no, it's an aansteker, jou moer. But anyway, he said, kom skiet met ons, Engelsman. So we did the 90mm course. And the 90mm course, you also did the 60mm. And it was when shooting the 60mm, I loved that weapon. That was, yeah, so you shoot straight with the Ratel 90, but the mortar there's a lot of variables, and you don't shoot straight with the mortar, you lob bombs over, and you have different ways of lobbing bombs. Plus you've got your smoke and illumination, and that little 60mm, that's got a kill radius of about 15 meters. And yeah, I could hit a target first round. I think the maximum range of that thing was just over 1 kilometer. And yeah, I would hit my target first time. I was deadly with that thing. And plus, it's super easy to clean as well. You just take a potato sack and you run it through the barrel, and it's clean. It's ready. You know, a 90mm to clean a 90mm. There's this fucking long 3-meter barrel, and you got to. Oh, it's another thing. So what? Yeah. So at the end of the course, much to the disappointment of my instructors, I chose to be a 60mm gunner. They were like, "No, why don't you want to do 90?" I was like, "No, I like this gun here. It's fine." What else did we do? Oh, we did the 3.0 Browning and the 1/2-inch Browning as well. Yeah, another funny story about talking about always being so sleepy all the time. We were doing Veldkuns, and we had to do camouflage. And I think we were doing it behind the Parabats, their base. There was a bit of bush and stuff. Like, anyway, and they said, okay, all camo yourself up, and then we'll come around and check and score you on your camouflage. Anyway, I camouflaged myself up. I climbed up a tree and I fell asleep. So I don't know. The next thing I wake up and I'm like, where is everyone? They've all gone. They're gone. I get down the tree. Oh God. I rock up at the camp about 2 hours later. They're like, hey, where were you? Where were you? Botwood. So we were there. After that, we finished our courses and we got all joined together with our platoons, the ones that we were going to be operational with. That's right. Well, we still had our instructors, our instructors. And we went off to the Eastern Transvaal. And I think we were there for about a month in a beautiful little spot, a little paradise camping place. The rest of the company, they were all in this big camp in the city. And they sent our platoon out about, I don't know, half an hour's drive away from the camp. And so I ended up, because we didn't have rifles and we just had some biffles, and every day a section or 2 sections would have to go out and do a patrol around the camp, and search people. And that was funny. One day we stopped this massive truck, a huge truck, open up the doors. It's full of people. So now the truck is about, I don't know, I suppose 1.5 meters off the ground. It's high off the ground. So, and there's all these big mamas there. And we pull them off the truck, get them all off the truck. We go through, search all their stuff. don't find anything, obviously. And all the oaks go back to the biffle, you see. So I stay behind, as usual, and I'm starting to help these fat mamas back onto the truck, you see. And the oaks, they're all laughing. All the people around, they laugh because I'm this skinny little oak. I'm like hauling and pushing. And the rest of the platoon are saying, hey, Botwood, what the fuck? Let's go. And eventually they know I'm not going to stop. So they come and they all start helping. So that was it. They were all back on. But that's com ops, you know. You do that. I used to, if I was searching people, I would tickle them, you know. And it just, they're like, oh, and it just lightens because just, yeah, sometimes it wasn't so nice, you know. And the funny thing is that, yeah, that was, we got caught there one day. We went, me and two other guys, we went off into the bush around the camp in our flip-flops and shorts and t-shirt. And I think we smoked some zol in the trees. We got very geruk. So we come back, we're walking along the road, and we're like totally spaced out. And we see this little brown van coming down the road. And it's like, it looks like, and it's coming down. No, it's the company sergeant major and the staff sergeant. We think, oh shit. He comes driving straight up to us. Fuck, maak julle! Waar's julle gewere? Why aren't you in uniform? Yes, and plus he was stoned. And I just said, the best thing to do is just act stupid, you know. So I said, no, we're looking for wood. We're looking for wood for the fire, for the kitchen. And he's like, what? And I'm like, we haven't found any wood yet. Anyway, so the next thing he goes, they turn the car around and go storming off to the camp. And we think, oh, yes, here comes Cup. So he's come into the back there, and there the lieutenant and the two corporals are standing at attention. And the sergeant major is dressing them down. Anyway, after that, we had to get really parata, our whole camp, because it was like a holiday. Oh, because the CSM come in and all the oaks are sunbathing in underpants. We set up a little canteen and a snooker table. And yes, this brew. That was 10 minutes, and we were all like super parata, running around everywhere, push-ups. So, anyway, a bit later on, the three of us, because I was in the kitchen. So I had like, I used to make all these dacha pipes out of vegetables, you know, pineapple bong, carrot pipe. So just, anyway, so we got caught there one day, we're smoking by the pillbox. And I see these three oaks coming through the smoke there. And it's the lieutenant. So I put this pipe in my pocket. Anyway, they come up to us and like, okay, what are you doing? We're looking for tadpoles. Tadpoles. They sort of paddle in the water there. Oh, looking for tadpoles. He says, yeah, what have you got in your pocket? It's like, they pull out a piece of paper, it's full of skittles. It's like, what else have you got in your pocket? Like, oh, okay, it's my carrot pipe. Yes, says Brew. Now we were in the cuck. Because our instructors were, you know, conservative Buddha, and we were like, dacha smoking was you were the devil. It's like, I remember us standing at attention, and the instructor, the corporal, was saying, this is like you've killed my mother. And I'm like, no, it's nothing like. Because the procedure in the military was that if you got caught with grass, you were then sent off to the police. It became a civil matter or a criminal with the police, you see. So just after that, anyway, so they basically said, right, go to your thing and we'll talk to you later. Anyway, they talked to us later and they said, okay, you've got two choices. Either we report you to the CO or you accept the punishment that we give you. And strangely enough, I think they thought that we would choose to be reported to the CO. But we said, no, we'd just take the punishment that you give to us. So they were super relieved as well, because like they didn't want to come 3 days later back to the CO and say, oh, now we've caught some of our guys smoking grass. So they were like, you know. Anyway, that was funny. Okay, we got a super opfok. And then the punishment is that we had to clean all the dishes in the kitchen. Okay, so we had to do that. The funny thing is that there were a whole lot of other guys that were scared that we were going to rat on them, and we didn't. So when we were doing the dishes, they all came and helped us. So that was good. Then after that, we went to Lewatla. We did Sweepslag. And I suppose by this time they already knew that we were going, that there was the guys were doing modular by this stage. And they knew that we were going to go up. Our instructors probably had started. Anyway, yeah, Lewatla was big, combined arms. So we did big live firing exercises and all like with the artillery, with the tanks. It was hard. Lewatla, yes, it's just like it's just a strange place. But anyway, everyone is just shooting the shit out of everything. So, and then after Lewatla, we went back to one side. And that's when we got all the guys that had finished doing the JLs. So they took over. And that was funny because our instructors were very tearful handing us over. And one of them said, oh, yeah, the Dachau workers are good soldiers. So he went from like, this is like, you've killed my mother, to like, it's okay. Yeah, well, you get to know people, you know. So after that, yeah, and then they said, right, I think we had like quite a long pass, a week or 2 weeks. And they said, right, when you come back from this, you're going up to the border. So off we went, came back from pass, got onto the Hercules, I think it was. And flew up to Rundu. And that was crazy because that Hercules, when it lands, all of a sudden, it just banks up. You sitting on the side there, you looking at your Mikey, you could spit on him. You don't dribble because it's going to land on his face. But that guy, some of the guys just scream, whoa! And that thing just comes down. They just like they hit the brakes and it just drops out of the sky. I remember the G-forces. You can't even lift your hand up. Anyway, you get to Rundu, the back of that door opens, you get off, and that heat just hits you that is the first thing you get, is just like thick wall of heat that you've never experienced in your life before. So we get off there. And they pack us onto the back of these trucks, the SAMAs. And they say, okay, you're going into Angola. Don't be surprised when you see these like oaks with AK-47s. That's UNITA. And they drove us over the bridge to like an acclimatization camp, basically to acclimatize to the heat, which is really hot. I mean, you're talking like 40 degrees in the shade. So we spend a couple of weeks at this acclimatization camp. Oh, that's another thing I remember. I got at the end of basics, I got stress fractures. So I was reclassified. I wasn't G1, K1. But because I wanted to do the 90 mil course, and I figured like most of the running is finished, I just didn't say anything. So they didn't say anything. I didn't say anything. So it is fine. Right. So we're in that camp. Oh, and during that time, the other troops from Modular were starting to come down. So the tanks were coming down. I met one of the guys I was in school with. He was a mag gunner with, I think he was a mag gunner with 6.1. And I met him there. They were all very quiet. I mean, even talking to him, he didn't say much. They just wanted to get the fuck out, I think. And I also think they didn't want to frighten us. Yeah, because you don't want to frighten oaks, really. It was a serious shit going on up there. So, okay, after that, we were there for a couple of weeks. Then we get flown up to Mavinga. And that was, I think from Rindu to Mavinga is probably, I don't know how long, maybe an hour. Mavinga is about 200 kilometers from the Angolan border. A big UNITA stronghold. And they cut a strip, those aeroplanes. It's a big aeroplane. They'd have to fly below radar level, anywhere between, I think, 30 and 100 meters. And because sometimes they had no visibility, they were just flying on instruments. To plonk an aeroplane, and that was just like a gravel road cut out into the bush with smudge lamps. So as the plane lands, they put the lamps out, little paraffin lamps. Anyway, we get out of this plane. It's pitch black. There's nothing. Can't see anything. Get out of the plane. Get onto some, I think they were queerfulls. They drive us about 20 minutes, and then they just say, right, sleep here. Okay, so you put your bivvy down, and you go to sleep. And in the morning, you wake up, and you're in this thick, lush green jungle. It's beautiful. It's beautiful jungle. And green, and you're just like, okay, well, now, I don't know, where are we? Like, okay, obviously know we're in Angola, but still don't really know what's going on. And so then they say to us, okay, just take out your combat kit, put your balsack and all your other kit onto the back of a truck. So that's just your magazines, your webbing, sleeping bag, bivvy, just your combat kit. Now we're going to go pick up the rattles. And that's, I mean, thing is, we're fresh troops. We've never, but they were rough. The guys that we picked the rattles up, the equipment, Charlie's section didn't have a rattle because that was shot out. Yeah, they were, and also again, they didn't say anything to us. You could see they were rough. I mean, filthy, dirty, and these guys had been in the field for like 4 months, and they'd been fighting some full-on conventional battles, tanks. So we pick up their vehicles from them. Oh, that was interesting. Around that time, no, it was a bit later. We were there for a couple of weeks. Anyway, one night we get woken up. It's like 2 o'clock in the morning. Tree on, the whole company. It's tree on. What's going on? And it's pitch black. Can't see anything. We're all treed on there. And out of the darkness, there's the voice of the 2IC telling us that we're slack troops and the discipline is cuck and the drunkenness and da-da-da, we must all be. And out of the darkness, this voice said, "Motherfucker." And then someone else said, yeah, puss. And the whole company just went back to bed. Fuck yeah. Anyway, so I mean, that was it. Yeah, we're 200 kilometers in Angola. What are you going to do? You're not going to, give us this disciplined cuck or whatever. Anyway, so we pick up our vehicles. We start moving up. We cross the Lomba River on Christmas Day. Mm. The one thing that Oman that we took over from, they said, we just want, basically keep your head down. It's not a game. And make sure the MiGs don't see you. So don't leave shiny things lying on the ground. Cigarettes, my downfall. Don't leave stuff lying on the ground. And on the way up, we saw some MiGs, but they were flying really high, really high. And we just watched them. Not too by the crossing the Lomba on Christmas Day. Yes, that we pushed our vehicles through that river. We were covered in mud. So I suppose that was the 25th. Yeah, 25th. So now we move up to the front, where everything is there. Now Quito Carnival, that whole battle area, covered an area of about 320 square kilometers. And basically you had the Quito River coming down, Quito Carnival. You had the Quito River coming into the Quito River. And then under that you had the Dala River, and underneath you had the Chimbinga, I think. But basically from Quito, the front line, so you basically had these rivers, and our front was probably a 20-kilometer front, if that makes any sense. And from Quito Carnival, just directly over the river. Okay, so these guys FAPLA had a lot of time to dig in, and the Cubans were also really coming in now. Fidel Castro was like not happy. I mean, they reckon by this time the Soviets had sent in about $1 billion worth of hardware into that area. Castro I think there were up to 50,000 Cuban troops in Angola at that time. Obviously not all at Quito Carnival. So just over Quito, you had the 16th Brigade, you had the 66th Brigade. They were like the headquarters, the headquarters was on the other side of the river. And then on that about 8 or 10 kilometers away from the bridge at Quito, you had the 59th Brigade, no, the 21st Brigade up in the north by the Quito River. And the 21st Brigade, I mean, that complex was probably between 16 and 20 square kilometers. So it's a big camp. And then underneath that, you had about 8 kilometers, 5 kilometers south of the 21st Brigade, you had the 59th Brigade, which probably covered about 10 square kilometers. And then underneath them was the 25th Brigade. Yeah, 25th Brigade. And they were dug in this defensive formation covering this 20-kilometer front. And they were probably about 8 kilometers from the bridge. Trying to get it. I mean, we didn't know any of this. We were just kept in the dark. But because it is something that affected my life so profoundly, I've done a lot of research to try and understand like what was going on. Okay, so it was on New Year's Eve. We get told we're going to do a fire belt action on the 21st Brigade. So we go along north of the Quito River, and we put ourselves about 2 kilometers on the other side of the river from the 21st Brigade. But I mean, we got into our positions at midnight. I mean, it's thick, thick bush. You can't believe how thick the bush is. I mean, yeah, I mean, it saved us to a big degree because they had control of the air, but we could hide quickly. And anyway, this is our first baptism of fire. So we were the tanks, mortars in the bush. Don't know where we are. I mean, we just and we started about well, it was the tanks and the mortars that just fired onto the 21st Brigade positions. And I think, from what I read, I've got this book by what's his name? It's called War in Angola: The Final South African Phase. It's by Helmut Romer Hitman. And it's a real blow-by-blow account. I mean, you must know that we talk about the 21st and the 59th Brigades, but all of the time there's all these smaller skirmishes going on between UNITA, reconnaissance. I mean, the FAPLA were very aggressive. They were always sending out patrols, reconnaissance patrols. So we were, but it's, I mean, it's a big area, and you can hide easily and get away. And anyway, so we start shooting at the 21st Brigade. And I think what he says there, I mean, that was big. I mean, the tanks fired about 800 rounds onto their position over a course from 2 o'clock in the morning till 5 o'clock in the morning. They did 3 shoots. And the mortars lobbed about 500 rounds onto their position. Anyway, so when that finished, what did we do? I think we pulled out of that position. And now we're in our hide. And now these MiGs are flying around us. It's like low and fast, and they're dropping bombs all around us. And it's then you realize, okay, this is serious. This is serious. They're trying to kill us. There's no quarter. This is war. The next thing, there's the sound of this MiG right above us. You can't imagine the noise. Whoa! Boom! I remember lying flat. I didn't even want to move because I was thinking, if I move, maybe he'll see me. And all this vegetation is like hopping and jumping in front of me. I actually thought he was shooting his machine guns in front of me. I thought that's what it was, the rounds coming in front. But what it was is the shrapnel blowing through the trees and just chopping everything. And it is all falling on us. And that bomb, luckily, I mean, it landed like 50 meters from us. There were 2. I think it was 2 250 pounders or 500 pounders. But I mean, that bush was so thick that you couldn't walk in a straight line for a couple of meters. Yeah. And where those bombs landed, that was just 30 square meters, nothing, clear. Thank God it landed on slightly higher ground than us. So it just went higher above us. But if that guy had pressed his button like a split second later, we would have been dead. That would have been us, finished, game over. It's like, yeah. Anyway, that was our big wake-up call. So after that, we became black belt in camouflage. Vehicle camouflage, like you wouldn't see the rattle. It just looked like a tree with wheels. Dig our foxholes. The first thing we get out, dig our foxholes. Like some oaks of fight. Oh, I got the spade first. Yes. Yeah. So then we knew that was it. And I think the plan was to take the 21st Brigade on the 2nd of January. That was the big, but they decided they were going to let UNITA do it. With just the artillery, but the UNITA oaks they said when they attacked the base, they just got hit by enemy artillery. I mean, obviously the Cubans and FAPLA had the whole place zoned out with their artillery. Obviously it was hard for them because we had like spotters, artillery spotters all over the place. And anytime they spotted artillery shooting at us, then the G5s would just take them out. I mean, the G5s, they were significant element in that war. Very accurate, much more accurate than the FAPLA guys. Mind you, the FAPLA could also be accurate at times. So, what else? Right, so UNITA couldn't take the 21st Brigade. And there was a lot of waiting. We were doing a lot of training as well in the bush. We were training with the tanks, training with the UNITA, because they decided that our infantry would stay in the vehicles unless absolutely necessary. Because all of the guys, most of the guys that got hit in modular were hit by artillery. And in that thick bush, just didn't make any sense. So we used UNITA as the infantry. And we were practicing all the time, movement together, working together. And I think we attacked the 21st Brigade on the 13th of January. So our forward assembly areas were about 8 kilometers away from, hang on, is it? Yeah, I'd say about 8 kilometers away from the 21st Brigade's positions. So we've been awake all the time now. We get to our forward assembly area at about 5 o'clock. And we just sit and wait there. And we also had to wait for the weather as well, because if there was clear sky, we didn't do anything. Because the MiGs were a real threat. Terrifying. I think it took me about 10 years after that. Every time I hear anything that sounds like a jet aircraft, not to have heart palpitations. I mean, there were guys that came home at pass. We'd be sitting in the lounge, and an aeroplane would go overhead, and they would just dive under the coffee table. And their families would be like, "What? What are you doing?" Yeah, you don't think when the minute you hear that sound, you're in. You in your foxhole. In fact, Charlie section, their driver, he had to stay behind in the Bach to wait for a new vehicle. And by the time Charlie section got their new vehicle, we had already done the attack on the 21st Brigade. And we were all sitting under a tarpaulin, and these MiGs came in to bomb us. And we were in our foxholes, and the driver, he hadn't had any experience. He was still sitting out going like, "What?" That's how quick we were. And even the guys with the little diesel stove, pump it up and it goes whoosh, and the guys would just dive into their foxholes, and they're like, "Oh." So the 21st Brigade, I think we started moving off at about 11 o'clock. And the first objective was to hit because this 21st Brigade, it was, like I say, over about almost 20 square kilometers, with the headquarters in the middle, and then all is like battalion strength defensive posts. So the idea was that UNITA would attack from the northwest, and we would start the attack from the 4 o'clock position. That would be from the southeast, east-southeast. And 6-1 Mech was going to cover our left flank, because bear in mind, we had the other two brigades to the south of us. So start moving off. I think we started moving off about 1:30, and I think we got to the first objective around about 2:00. Okay, and that's when you start drawing artillery fire. A little bit before then, and it's. But I remember you can't see very much out of the vision block of the Rattle. You've got just in front, you've got to the side, and I think there might be one at the back. But the hatches had to be closed because there were guys that were killed because it had stuff land on the Rattle, or I think there was one tanker as well, and they hadn't closed the hatch, and it just blew the hatch open. And the artillery was, I mean, at some points these guys were lobbing about 1,000 rounds an hour at us. And then you got the MiGs, and you just, I mean, I remember looking out and thinking, like, I can't believe I'm here doing this. Like, sometimes it looked like the ground was boiling with the artillery. How I think the trees probably saved us, the thick vegetation, and also the sand was very soft. So that sand would absorb a lot of the energy of those explosions. But I mean, I saw the Unita guys, they were outside, they took hammering. I saw one guy get hit by a big, and he was probably 5 meters away from us. And there was nothing. There's nothing. It's just white and blood, but no body. It's, yeah, and that as well. You just keep moving. You know, the medics are the guys that see. I mean, you're in your small bubble, right? And I suppose our front line must have been maybe up to 1/2 kilometer in length. And the Rattle 20s, and we had to stay close. So the tanks, the infantry, the Unita were in front. And as soon as they made contact, the tanks would come in, and then the Rattles would integrate with the tanks. And the Rattles were slightly higher, so we had better vision, which put the T-55s at a big disadvantage because it's such a low tank. We couldn't see anything. Oh yeah, that was another thing as well, because it was very difficult in that bush to keep in line. So we had to stay close. The vehicles were never more than 10 meters away from each other. You really had to always be in constant communication with the other vehicles, trying to keep in line. I mean, sometimes guys got lost, and it was hairy, because all of a sudden you see a Rattle reversing in front of you, you know, and it's like, what are you doing? And you become completely disorientated. So we hit the first, and obviously as we're getting closer to the position, there's just the contacts become more intense. The artillery becomes more intense. So we hit our first objective around 2:00, and then the idea was to move on to the northern objective, the same objective that Unita were attacking. And we got a bit lost. We also went through a massive minefield. I think it was Alpha Platoon 1, the Alpha section. Hit a landmine, but it hit the middle wheel. That was also interesting as well, because as being in a platoon commander's Rattle, you're also on the company net. So you're on the platoon net and the company net, and then you sometimes relaying orders to the rest of the platoon while the lieutenant is on the company net. So, and that was just after that, where Sarah was talking about where they lost their tracks on the high ground there, it was around about 3 o'clock, I think. 3 o'clock, yeah. And that was when we were just coming onto the northern outpost, and that was, and then we turned. I think from there we turned south, or southwest, to move onto the headquarters itself, and that's when the big fight was coming. So I mean, it would be interesting to maybe get some of the reconnaissance guys, because they had to go in and mark out our attack route. So they must have been at that point probably up in the trees watching that fight, because like Sorrel says, listening to that, he said he couldn't believe anyone actually got out alive, because that was airplanes, tanks, artillery. You can imagine a battle line 1/2 a kilometer wide, okay, just rifles and tanks. So we hit that at about, must have been 4 o'clock. By about 4 o'clock, we're probably in the position to make our final move onto the Dulvit. And then we hit them. Because from there, from that point, you hit the outer camp. To get to the next place, you've got like 2 kilometers, about 2,000 meters. And then from there, another 2,000 meters to the headquarters. So, and all the time, you're just being hit by artillery. You know, sometimes it's a bit off, sometimes it's right on you. And I saw rifles get hit by, that was when Sarah was talking about the first tank on the 59th Brigade, when the barrel blew off. We was right behind that tank, and I saw it coming past, reversing, and then Sorrel's tank came in front. Obviously, I didn't know it was Sorrel. Yeah, and at that time, I saw the Major's rifle was next to us, and it took a direct hit. Must have been from it looked like an 80mm mortar, and it did nothing. Hit just by the driver's window. Okay, so we start moving on this position. I think I started firing my mortar at about 2 o'clock. And the way the mortar works is that it's a bit speculative. We were trained that whenever you hit contact, the 60mm needs to put the bombs to create a fire belt behind the contact zone, because surely on the principle, either you've got guys running away or guys coming to reinforce, but there's always somebody behind those guys. And that's okay, so I was shooting at a range of about anywhere between, I don't know, 100 or 200 meters. And I was lobbing the bombs over the trees. You couldn't shoot direct, so I was having to shoot the bombs over the trees. And that was funny as well, because that first round I shot, all the guys in the back were like, whoa! They thought we had been hit out. What are you doing? They tell us, next time you shoot, tell us. It's like, you in Luwatla, you know what it sounds like. Ping! Yeah, fuck. I shot in that attack. I used up all the ammunition in my turret before, and then there was a quick moment where I had to open our hatch and take in from the guys at the back, reload my turret, which they were very quick at doing. They were like, no questions. Hey, come on, more ammo. You know, as much as you want, just keep shooting. Don't let up. So we started making contact with the headquarters around about 6, 6:30, and that was a big fight. That was a pitched battle. for an hour. Pitch, and you can't believe the noise. The noise, it was like, you know, in the popcorn machine, when it's going, pop, 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 pop. Well, that is like 100 times louder. That's what it's, and it's like an hour. That's it, man. And you got RPG rockets. You got, it's just insane. You can't imagine. And after a while, it's just smoke everywhere. You can't even see. There's just so much smoke and dust. And obviously at Luatla, I'd only shot maybe 4 or 5 rounds. Okay, and I've been shooting a lot. And the whole turret is now full of black cordite smoke. And that was shit as well, because the seal on my mortar was a bit broke. It wasn't so lacquer. And so every time I shot, it just blew cordite into my face like that. But anyway, I decided, okay, I'm going to use the extraction fan to get all the smoke out. And it was the first time I ever used the thing. It was so loud. We couldn't hear what was going on. So I had to switch it off. Or, you know, and then use it bits. Yeah, it was weird. And then the nighttime came, so I started using illumination. That's when I switched to illumination. Bing, bing. And then I think that it all kind of stopped around about 7 o'clock. They split. So we got out, I think. Yeah, we got out. It was nighttime. We went over the camp, looked around. I think around about 7:30, we all got in and we moved about 1.5 kilometers away from that place. And I think we just replenished with diesel and slept. And at 6 o'clock in the morning, we were already going back to the objective to carry on with our attack. But I mean, yeah, I mean, shit, tanks. You see a tank blow up. There was one tank, I think, we couldn't even find the turret. It's like nothing. Tank burns. When it burns for like several hours. It just burns and burns. And the smell, yes, the burning smell of burning bodies. And it's weird because, like, in the morning, in the fight, it smells like a barbecue there. And in the morning, it smells like a butcher shop. That fresh meat smell. It's yeah, no, it is violent. Shit. Oh. It's like one of my buddies said. He said, I wouldn't give that experience up for the world, but I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. So we carried on the attack the next morning, and then we were also shooting out, you know, stragglers, vehicles left behind. We picked up a 23mm, put it on the back of our truck on our rattle. And we were just about to, around about midday, we were about to get into another big fight. But I mean, by this time we were kissed, so we were running low on ammunition, running low on everything. I mean, imagine by this time you've been awake for like 3 days, no sleep, and being in those rattles in 40 degrees Celsius with the hatches closed. I mean, there were times when you were just in your underpants. It's like, because it was too hot. Yeah, so that was it. We finished that attack. We pulled back. Oh, and UNITA were given, UNITA filled those 21st Brigade positions. And 3 days later, Papla came and took them back. we weren't very happy about that. But you know, the fact is that infantry against tanks and armor, are especially, no, the Unitans were good fighters. I mean, that war had been going on for about 16 years. So those UNITA guys, they were trained since children to fight. So you go 16 years old, you're already in. If you're just infantry, you've got no chance. So we, after that, yeah, then we just went back. We carried on training, did more training. And that's funny about the rat packs. The first time we got given rat packs, I think it was just before Lawatla, around about Lawatla. We finish our rat packs at lunchtime. We say, okay, well, where's our lunchtime rat pack? And they say, no, it's got to last the whole day. And we're like, no, we can't live on one rat pack. This is insane. We're going to die. Like, but after a while, one rat pack will last you 3 days. Obviously, where we were, there were times where they couldn't get stuff to us. So we would often go, not often, but go without food. But it was when the water ran low that it was very interesting to watch how people behave, because it was very primal. And yeah, guys, yeah, primal. I mean, people will come and steal your water. Yeah, you know, not everyone, but there were elements that just, you know, I mean, it's just desperate like that. And it's also interesting. I mean, some of the guys would really crack, and just from seeing what they've seen would go into shock. And very, very frightened. I mean, you know you're going to die, basically. You think you're going to die. But we never ridiculed any of them, because we knew that it could have been us. You don't know when you put in that situation where your limit is before you crack. And it's an unknown variable until you're in that situation. And when somebody cracks, you don't ridicule them, because you know it could have been you. And in that kind of bush as well, you can have a hell of a battle going 10 meters away from you, and those guys are dying, and their war is like finished, and you're 10 meters away, and everything is not the same for you. You're finding your targets, you're not drawing too much fire. I mean, a lot of times in that bush, you're drawing fire, you don't even know where it's coming from. But after that, all of our rifles all the soft points in the rifles were full of holes. Full of holes. I mean, we had a hole in the front plate of our rifle. It almost went through, but I mean, some of the guys were keeping their rations on the spare wheel with the oil. It just got obliterated. Yeah, so, well, that was the 21st Brigade, and then our next objective was the 59th Brigade. And that was also the interesting thing about that is, the unique thing about the 21st Brigade is probably we weren't as frightened because we had no experience. We didn't know what to expect. You know, just don't. It's nothing like training. This training is, you don't have like people trying to shooting back at you, and like, seriously, with everything they've got. And that's weird, going on to the 59. And that was a horrible thing as well, because they'd be like, okay, we're going in tomorrow. And then it would be nice weather. Okay, stop. So I think for that, you're waiting almost a week of we're going, we're not going, we're going, we're not going. This is, that plays with your head a lot. But yeah, the second time, I know my mind was okay, but my body was going, oh, no. Yeah, I don't know. 59th was pretty much the same as the 21st. Same thing, a little bit different. They were much more aggressive with their counterattacks. The artillery was also a lot more accurate. Also along the same time period, you're talking like the whole thing, 3 days. I mean, the other thing to bear in mind is that when you finish those battles, you don't go back to South Africa. You don't go back to your camp. You just go back into the bush. Just real cat and mouse stuff. We had to, we stayed in one place. I mean, as we got better at it, we could stay in a place longer. But in the beginning, we had to vacate because so many guys in the bush. You trample the bush down, and then you could be seen from the air. So the least impression we could make, the longer we could stay in a place. But then we also, Fapla was sending out reconnaissance all the time. They knew we were there. I mean, and you could tell how accurate they were from the aeroplanes coming and bombing us. I mean, for those 3 months that we were up there, once we were up on the front, we were pretty much bombed every day by at least twice a day. I mean, either the flies wake you up in the morning or the MiGs would wake you up in the morning. Yeah, I remember once I was taking the piss. I dug my foxhole really deep. I dug it like so deep, just taking the piss. Anyway, one day Ricky's standing there. He was a platoon NCO. And these MiGs are flying and he's having a piss. And he says, "Oh, check those MiGs out." And you see these puffs of white smoke from the MiG. They drop these parachute bombs. He says, "It's dropped its bombs. And they're coming this way." It runs, dives into his foxhole. And you just sit there. I'm in my foxhole and we're watching these bombs come slowly because they're on parachutes. And they hit the ground. The ground was shaking so much that my foxhole started to cave in on me. So I was like, I thought I was going to be, I had to trample dirt as this foxhole was caving in on me. It was getting higher and higher. But that's how close they got. I mean, you have 3 or 4 MiGs dump 2,000 pounds of bombs. Okay, 300 meters, 200 meters away. I mean, they attacked one. I think one point they attacked one of the stellings from the echelon guys, and they were probably about, I don't know, 500 meters away from us, and those MiGs bombed them for like 2 hours solid. And I think 2 guys were killed because they used the cluster ammunition. The cluster bomb went into their foxhole. And you don't even really try shooting back. They're too fast. And in fact, if you shoot back, you just draw attention to yourself. And you don't want to do that. Oh, it's funny, when we're going up, our Charlie section had one of the section leaders was a DJ. And he set up a thing called Radio Charlie. And we're just doing it on our platoon net. Every night and we'd do things like we'd have interview captured MiG pilot. And one of the guys, Dave, he was the MiG pilot, and all he was saying is, "See, yeah." Interviewing him, taking the piss out of, the rank or whatever. And one night, it was about the time of the new intake. And Andrew says, "Yeah, let's hear it for the new troops being on the new intake." Now, we didn't know this, but the whole Vech group was all listening to our radio station. And in the middle of the bush, you just heard, "Yay!" Anyway, the rank went ballistic. They were like, "What? Shut up." Charlie, I don't know if it was the end, but we got into trouble for that. They were like, "You don't make any noise here. It's forbidden to make any noise." Yeah, there was lots of other things. It's just not. I mean, those were 2 attacks, but there was lots of other stuff in between, you know. Yeah, but we were just doing cat and mouse. Boere, crepe, crepe. It would be interesting. I mean, the medics would be interesting, especially the guys in the field hospital, because they would have seen all of the casualties coming in. I mean, you know, that must have been quite traumatic for them. And plus, you couldn't be casevaced out until the night time. Yeah, I don't know. It's I'm a bit. How long have I been talking for now?
You've been
Is it long
talking
enough?
more than an hour and 10 minutes ago, which is amazing.
Yeah.
But it was fascinating. I must tell you, Daniel, I was sitting here now thinking to myself, what age were you guys when this happened?
I was 18. I had my 19th birthday in Angola. The youngest guy in our platoon was 17.
You know, we actually had one of the Special Forces people telling us about directing the fire at Carnival, my friend
Yeah,
Esme Fourie. And Esme got shot during training. And I said to him, Skalk, what went through your mind? I mean, you're 18, 19 years old, and you now shot here through the leg. It wasn't serious. One of the guys shot him by chance. He said,
yeah.
man, I didn't want to die a virgin. He said, it's the first thing which came through my head. Now I have to ask you guys, were you also, you're so young and you're thinking, man, I might not even experience any love in my life, or were it not a big subject to you?
Do you know what we used to fantasize about the most? Food. We used to just say, oh, when we get back, I'm going to have a steak, I'll have a big roast. Yeah, no, food was, yeah, food was the big fantasy for us.
If I may ask you quickly, Daniel, when you guys were there at one side, I think it's in Bloemfontein, which is a wonderful
Yeah.
place. I studied at Bloemfontein Coffees, I don't want to tell you all. Any problems with the bats, with the paratroopers coming after you guys?
No, all of that rivalry stuff, I don't know. No, we were one side. We were heavy infantry. You don't fuck with heavy infantry. We were tough. Parabats, we used to call them vleesbommen. I have to say that our leadership was exceptional. Our training, it's then when you're in a situation like that, all the training makes sense. Really. And our training was top notch. We were very well trained, and it also makes you realize how well trained our JLs were, because you also realize how much pressure those guys, same age as us, were now in a big war situation, responsible. And you know that some of your guys aren't going to make it. Um, and all of the other guys as well. You got the Air Force, where everybody did their work exceptionally well. I mean, considering a lot of us were just conscripts. Yeah, but the professionalism. I have a friend of mine who's now in the Australian military, and he was also up there, but I think he was along the road between Manong and Quito. And I think he was, I don't know what he was doing, but he's saying that, like, within military circles, there's a lot of respect for what the South Africans managed to achieve there. I mean, it was a very rickety, the echelon, the logistics line was precarious. You could only travel at night. Well, daytime, if you're further away from the front, we'd get early warning from the Victor Victor. Victor Victor, stunt orange, and then stunt Roy. But yeah.
I have a technical question for you, if I may ask this. I've heard that the Ratel 20, that gun off it, that cannon, that it's a dual feed. You can shoot different
That's
types
right.
of ammunition at the same time. How does the, so that's
Yeah,
true. How does it work?
you got two belts. One is high explosive and the other is armor piercing. And the gunner can choose which belt to shoot. But to give you an idea, that when we were at the Brug, some parabats were playing around with an unexploded 20 mil round. And there was about 5 of them, and it went off, and I think it killed 2 of them, and it wounded badly the other guys. And that's just, that doppie's, I don't know, it's not very big, eh? Yeah. But still, it's a cannon, 20 mil cannon.
Yeah, no, it can kill. I mean, it's dangerous. But
Well,
this,
there were two occasions, only I think 2 occasions where the 20 mil took out a tank. And on both those occasions, the crews were killed because they got shot by the tank coming up behind. Another friend of mine, Clarence, I think his name was, I think he was with 661. He said that he came with his rifle, they came, and when you, in that bush, when you come up on a tank, you're like, it's right in front of you. It's the first person who can shoot is going to be the one that comes out. And his 20 mil, he started shooting, his 20 mil jammed. So he started to let rip with his Browning, and it didn't do anything. And this tank shot at them, and the round hit the side of the rattle, but it bounced off. But he said that whole rattle just lifted off the ground. Basically, he was still shaken when I saw him. He was like telling me his story. Yeah, it's messy. When a rattle gets hit, it's not pretty.
I just
And
want
it's
to
funny
say,
because we felt invincible in those things, but in reality, it was just like. But we always used to wonder, like, if it would be safer being in the rattle as a big target, or being able to be on the ground and operating with the infantry. I can tell you what, we were glad to be in those rattles. Very, very happy to be in those rattles. I mean, unless you got hit directly by something, but if you were on the ground, if they let the troops out in that artillery, we would have had hundreds of casualties. I mean, you need to lost hundreds of guys. So they lost a lot of men in those attacks. I think the one, that recce guy who was Sierra Whiskey, he was in one of the OPs. And he mentioned something, I think on one of the attacks, you need to lost 1,000 men.
yeah, that's Skulk for it. He was telling about, it's in his book as well. It's in a book we wrote. He mentions that. He mentioned this firefight where he said it was unbelievable. He said the shooting were going on non-stop. It was just one
Yeah,
huge noise. He says he's never heard anything like that ever in his life.
yeah. Yeah, that must have been the 21st Brigade. It's like Sarl said, when he was in his tank there listening to the attack, how anyone could come out alive from that was just a miracle.
Tell me about
Yeah.
that when you saw Sarl's tank being hit. Because
But
that's
that
what
was on,
started all of this. You made a comment under his episode.
yeah, that was on the 59th Brigade. Yeah, it was at a moment where we were receiving quite heavy artillery. There was like bombs lying all over the place, and then his tank was right in front of us. Oh, I was looking through the periscope, and I think they got hit on the left side. Boom! They're just like white smoke everywhere, and they came jumping out. Charlie's section came full speed, opened their doors to let them get in. Plus, then all these UNITA guys also wanted to get in as well, because there's like fucking all hell breaking loose around us. Scully's jumps out with someone else with the fire extinguishers to go and try and put this fire out. being on the fire extinguisher doesn't work. Because we've been using it to cool our beers. And then I think the lieutenant ran back to the tank to go and switch it off. And as he jumped on, the thing blew up again, blew up in his face. He lost his eye in that.
Yeah, that was a calculated act of courage, because doing that, it's fantastic to hear. I also know this, SBS Kalk was telling us that at one stage they had to go and blow one of the elephant tanks, which got lost, and they couldn't get to it. They said because they picked up some evidence that Fopla was already there, and they were mining that tank, waiting for them to come in to blow it.
Yeah.
It's somewhere in his book as well. I remember the incident he described it.
You know what the hardest thing was is coming back to South Africa and realizing nobody believed your story. I mean, when you started telling stories like that, they just knew you're full of shit. There's no ways. Because the government was always saying there are no troops in South Africa. And eventually, I mean, it was very difficult to talk about as well. I mean, when I went home on pass after that, I'd be at my father's place. I'd be sitting on the sofa and they'd go out to work and they'd come back from work. I'd still be sitting on the sofa staring at the wall. It was very difficult to come back out of the bush for me. It's like, I like being in the bush. It is, yeah, I think that was, and it was the same. After that, they said to us we wouldn't have to do any camps for the first year. And the first year I was called up for a camp, and I was doing an apprenticeship then. And I wrote to them, I said, I can't do this camp. I'm in the middle of an apprenticeship. You must do this camp. I don't even have my medals. I don't have any of my medals. Nothing. But I think the reason for that is because I went back up to do Operation Displace, which was very interesting as well, because I was the gunner for the commanding officer, Commandant Pitnell, for that operation. So I got to see it from a totally different perspective.
I wonder if you can tell us about that operation, Displace. When did it take place? 88?
Yeah, well, after Hooper, there was Packer, which was, I don't know how, I was back in Angola. I think we pulled out of Angola at the end of March. And we got back to SAI. And they said it was, my rule as well is I always used to volunteer for everything. That was because there's two ways. Either it's going to be a shit job or a KIF job. If it's a shit job, everyone is really happy that you volunteered for the shit job. And if it's a KIF job, well, it's a KIF job. So, that was the only time they asked for volunteers. They wanted 3 rattle crews to go back up to Sector 20. And so they wanted 6 people, 3 gunners, 3 drivers, and only 10 people stepped forward. That was, I mean, our platoon, they were all saying, what the hell, you crazy, what do you want to go back there? But I couldn't face being in a camp, especially SAIs, not like, I don't know, just bungalows. It's the same shit, and you have to wash and shave and inspections. I don't know, I was like, no, I want to be back in that bush. I want to go. So Displace was, what we had to do was pretend that there were more of us than there were actually there. And the main thing that they did is they laid the minefield. But one of the biggest minefields in the world. It was about 20 kilometers. Well, they laid a minefield along that 20-kilometer front between those rivers. And that's all those engineers did, is just 24/7 basically, just lay mines. And some of the guys got their legs blown off because they'd spend all day in that heat laying mines and then become disorientated and poof, step on their own mine. We did a lot of work with because we were at the tactical headquarters. I think that's what it was. And so we would go with the commandant. He would just say to us, look, have the vehicle ready. We're going in 2 days. Be ready at 6 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning. And then we would just drive him, take him wherever he wanted to go. So we would go to the all-you-need-to camps, do liaison, work a lot with 3-2 Battalion. That's where I met Hannes Nordman. And that's a funny story as well, because me and Dave was this Welshman, okay, and I'm Irish. We're both Celts. And me and Dave, I mean, he was, the shit that we got up to, you wouldn't believe it. I mean, the one night we were in Bloemfontein and we were hammered. And we had these military police come and give us cuck. Okay. It ended up with them, they were like, oh, you're really in trouble. It ended up with them driving us back to our base and literally help at the gate saying, you need to look after these two. Just get rid of them. But it went from, oh, you're going to go to DB and you're in cuck to like, okay, come with us. We'll take you home, you know? Anyway, that was, we get to Displace. That was, we drove from the border, drove up to the front, which is about 400 kilometers on the back of a flatbed truck. And that was, you couldn't sleep, couldn't do anything. You spent 80% of the time in the air, because those roads, it's just, there's no roads, it's just tracks. We get up there, and no one wanted to be the crew for the commandant. He's a parabat. So me and Dave said, okay, we'll be the crew for it. And yeah, he was a very good soldier. I mean, the quality of the soldiers that we came across, they were just top of their game, you know, very professional. Yeah, anyway, so I think the commandant was thinking, what the hell, I'm stuck with these two English oaks here. And he says, right, we're going to go back. This is our first thing. The three of us were going to go down to the Bach, which is about a day and a half's drive from the front. Anyway, we get to the Bach, and he says, okay, I think we got there on the Tuesday, and he says, look, on Thursday morning, be ready to move out, 5 o'clock, be here. And he gets off the rifle, he says, oh, and also get some coffee, a tin of coffee. So me and Dave go down to the stores. We see the stores there. Now we've already been 4 months in the bush, so we know all the things you need to have to make your life comfortable in the bush. So we get into the stores there, we see all this stuff, and we're like, whoa, okay, we want the coffee. And I think the store master said, no, have you got a request? You need a request form. So we said, like, well, we're with the commandant. And he's like, well, you still need a request form. Okay, so we go get this request form with the coffee. We go find the commandant. We just say to him, sign this piece of paper, signs a piece of paper. And then we filled in the rest of the thing, all the things we needed, all the food and stores and everything. We filled this rattle like full of food. So anyway, 5 o'clock in the morning, we're ready there waiting for him. And he climbs up on the rattle and he says, oh, did you remember the coffee? And we look at him. Tell him, come look here. He opened the rattle. It's like full. And he's like, okay. So, and those rations lasted us the whole operation. And the good thing is that we would often we'd sleep in the bush, because we would go out for like 3, 4, 5 days. We'd liaise, UNITA, with the 3-2 Battalion Oaks, or sometimes we would go down just on our own and do reconnaissance all along the Quito River, along the Dala, and he was making maps of the whole area. Like, now I got to know that area really well. But anyway, so like when we were stopped in the nighttime with and he was with all of the other high-ranking guys. Me and Dave, we would cook a hot meal, and then we would come with plates and give it to all of them. And that was it. Then it was like the commandant was like, "These are my eggs." They were in Hooper, you know. Oh, yeah. So we got to know each other quite well. In fact, he sent me when I left the army, he sent me a testimonial. I'll read it to you. I don't have it here, but maybe I'll do another talk. Yeah, that was interesting because we were like, we had the same rank as him. See, we realized very quickly no one would cross question us, or so we were. Now it didn't take us long before we were having beer flown in, because we could go to the helicopter, we could go anywhere we wanted. He was just like, we just had to be there for him when he wanted to go somewhere, and we had 2 rattles that we were in charge of, and we swapped them over every time we went out, and the signals, because the command rattle has all these really nice radios, so the signalers had one rattle in situ, and then we'd keep both the rattles running. And I remember the signalers used to leave the rattle in a mess, sweet papers everywhere. And I remember one night Dave was a bit drunk, and he went in and he gave this captain an 8-cup in Afrikaans about how slag his troops were. He better fucking shape up like and keep that rattle clean or else. And everyone's faces were like, oh. And the captain didn't do anything. He was just like, oh. But yeah, so we started, because the helicopter pad was about, I don't know, a kilometer away from the camp. We'd go there, and then we were getting beer, lots of beer shipped in on the helicopter. And then we were going out, and everyone would have their orders, like the guys from Southwest Territorial, and I think there was 101 there, but we were supplying them with beer, you see. Anyway, the commandant noticed like a bit of drunkenness in, and he kept saying, I don't know where all this alcohol is. He would be, and he's saying like, it's a drinking. Where's all this booze coming from? And we're like, anyway, one day we're out in the bush. I think it was some guy from either 101, who was a captain or lieutenant, and he came to our rattle, and we gave him his big crate of beer, and he was walking along, and the commandant went past him, and he said like, where did you get that beer from? And he says, oh, Dave and Dan. Oh, and then the penny dropped. It's like, it's those 2. So he seemed quite impressed with our initiative, but he banned us after that. We couldn't go anywhere without his express orders. But we always found a way to get out. Yeah. Oh, that was one night. One night we got orders to go pick up a Kazavak from one of the OP's observation posts. So we start off in the nighttime. We had some UNITA guys with us, and I think we had an artillery guy, corporal. They insist on being called bombardier. Anyway, we called him corporal. We didn't care because it pissed him off. Anyway, so we're driving. And this is about it's dark. It must be about 9 o'clock. And we're driving on the Shauna. And Dave is driving too fast. Anyway, the next thing, we hit this bump. The whole rattle lifts out of the 6 wheels off the ground. And as it lands, the batteries jumped out of their things and shorted on the rattle. And from the driver's place, I just saw this big explosion, like boom, come out. And the rattle switched off. And when we tried to start it again, no battery, didn't want to start. And we're like, shit, now we're on the shore now. We can't be here in the daytime. If we get spotted, if we're still here by tomorrow, we're going to lose our rock. Because the MiGs, as soon as they see us, they're just going to kill us. So no one was really interested. And then we're quite a long way from where we've come. We've been driving now for about 3 hours. And but the batteries were so fucked, we couldn't even get comms on the battery to try and call our base for a recovery vehicle. I think we were very close to the OP, so they brought their Kazovac guy down to the Rattle. But the UNITA guys are saying, no, there's a UNITA camp about 5 clicks away from where we are. So I said, okay, well, take me to them. Let's go, because they had comms. So I set off with these 2 UNITA guys to go to this camp. And it's dark, and after, I think it was about a 2-3 hour walk. But after about 2 hours, I'm starting to think, I wonder where the fuck these oaks are taking me. And I kind of got it into my head that maybe they would just, because they were Fapla and UNITA, they were like families. You know, you'd have brothers in Fapla and uncles in UNITA. And I was thinking, oh shit, I hope these oaks just don't, I don't know. Anyway, it was weird coming into this camp. Pitch black. I go through this maze of trenches, and there's a fireplace, and there's all these guys sitting around there. They're very black people, very black, just white teeth and white eyes. And you find someone who can speak English, because most of them speak Portuguese. And I explained to them, look, what was going on, and if they could radio their guys next to our base and get a recovery truck to get us. So that's what they did. And then they said, we will take you back in the vehicle. And they said, we take you to the vehicle. And it was like action. Everyone sprung into action, like going all over the place. You come there, and there's this gas, this in mint condition, beautiful. It's like they polished it every day with this 14mm on the back of it, with no windscreen. And it was weird driving, and it was, I don't know why, but every time the guy went uphill in soft sand, he put on these hazard lights. So yeah, we get back to the Rattle, but by this stage, they'd managed to get comms and called directly to get a recovery vehicle out. Anyway, we got back to the camp just as the sun was coming. It was, and I think at the end of that, I flew out. Oh, that was also near the end. We got a mission. It was when at the end, almost at the end of Displace, I think it was, they put in motorized infantry came in. And me and Dave were there, and we were going to go, and then we got orders to stay. We had to pick up these Unitan guys in Mavinga, big general type oaks. We went into this UNITA camp in Mavinga, and it was huge, just like a city in the jungle. I mean, it took us an hour to find these guys. But it was, we wanted to get ahead of the convoy because we wanted to get back quickly. We weren't part of this convoy. And it took us a whole night to overtake this convoy. And we had a captain with us. You know, everyone who doesn't know the Rattle, they all want to ride in the Rattle. And they all want to ride in the turret. And I'm happy, go in the turret. The command Rattle in the back, nice sofa, squishy sofa. You go up there, and the captain, I don't know, he was a bit parata. We didn't really like him. Because he was slowing us down. He was like, you know, you need to stay with the convoy, because he was in charge of the convoy. And we were like, well, no, we commandant's orders, commandant's orders. You say commandant's orders. But anyway, this guy, I left him up in the turret the whole night. We managed to pass the convoy at about midnight. And we got to the first stop-off point. And the guy in the turret, they were just black. I mean, the two Uniton guys, I would swap them around, so they could take turns. The captain was staying there. So we get to this base, this thing, and I swear there was a big diesel bunker. We've been trying to call him on the radio. No answer. They were just when we got there, it was like these medics, and they were drunk. Yeah, they were just pissed. And we were like, why haven't you been responding to the anyway? But also there was this pile of beer, a huge pile of beer, and that was it. Then the captain was off. We were like, we filled our rattle full of beer, and we said to the captain, like, this is where you get off. And he's like, oh, we just know commandant's orders. This is where we part ways. These two Uniton guys need to be up in the front ASAP. So off we went. And then we flew out on a helicopter. That was about a 3-hour flight, I think, flew back to Rundu. And that was amazing to see all the forest fires, like raging forest fires, because there's no one there. I mean, no one to put them out. That was quite a sight to see. I question, my battery power is going out. The bottom line is, I think, like, for whatever happened there, when the ANC got into power, they would have very much liked to invite their Soviet buddies and Cuban buddies into South Africa. You look at Libya, Afghanistan, Iraq, Ethiopia now. Anything goes on, you've got all of these security agencies come in and they do whatever they like. And I think that what happened at Quito Carnival, nobody wanted any shit with the SADF. And that's why, they didn't want to. Because it's like Puk Buerta. He said to one of the Cuban generals, said to him, like, we're going to send in another 10,000 troops. And he said, well, we'll send in another 1,000.
That's actually true. That happened, and it was actually the major battle after the Second World War, I believe. It was the largest armored one anyway after the Second World War in Africa.
Yeah, the biggest conventional battles to have taken place on African soil since the Second World War.
Can I ask you quickly, what happened to you afterwards? What happened after you now got back to South Africa?
That's funny as well. We get to Waterkloof, and there's there's 6 of us, and me and Dave decided we were going to just go for a weekend pass, but unfortunately Forsyth was waiting for us in the minivan. Anyway, there's a couple of hours drive to Forsyth, to Middelburg, and we got so drunk. Yes, I passed out. I remember waking up, looking up and seeing the gates of Forsyth, and I just started to vomit. So I open the window, there's this guard there, I vomit all over his shoes. And now he wants to fuck me up, and the other guys just tell him to back off. Anyway, the next morning I wake up, I've still got a wimpy burger in my pocket. It's like, what's this? And we go schleep onto the end of the food queue. And the CSM sees us and he says, who are you, Oaks? Have you just come back from Sector 20? And we said, yes. He says, to the front of the queue. Off you go. So it's quite a huge privilege. Forsyth being sent to the front of the queue. Yeah. And then after that, I ended up in Ondongwa. Joined my platoon up in Ondongwa and was there till I cleared out, which was a very different war. It really affected me. It really hurt me to see the civilians being caught up in that. Yeah, it just wasn't. I didn't like. I was used to fighting soldiers. Not, you don't know who the enemy is there. Most of the people are okay, and I saw things that I just didn't agree with. That's, maybe it was the straw that broke the camel's back. Namibia was a different story. We hit a landmine on patrol there. That was quite something. It blew the. We went over it. Our Alpha section went over it. Oh, yeah, Bravo hit it. I blew the wheel off. There was nothing left of the wheel. No, Gus, that's it. My battery's running low. I don't know how much time we got left.
Yeah, I have a feeling we're gonna call you back, Daniel. I have a feeling there's still a lot of stories inside you.
Yeah, when I start thinking back, it's a lot. It's a lot of stuff. A lot of funny things happened. I mean, it wasn't all. But yeah, we were well trained. And like I say, everyone, it'd be interesting to get like, because yeah, maybe you've already had some of the guys like the reccees who had. I mean, that must take some brass balls to go into the enemy camp and take notes.
Yeah, they were a special breed of men. There's no doubt about it. But they all say one thing. They all say thank you to you guys. They all say thank you to everybody who supported them. And thank you to everybody who acted upon the information, the intelligence which they brought back.
Yeah. And the fact is, we couldn't have done it without each other, with all of the guys participating, without the Air Force, the logistics. And it's quite something to see Tiffies jumping out under heavy fire and going and doing their shit, like, getting the material out. Yeah, it was a big team effort, and everyone really, I think, excelled. And my battery's going to die.
Okay, no, that's good. I'll stop it here. And we're going to call you back. And we're going to answer the questions. So everybody, I want to invite you people. You can see this guy is a talker. He's from somewhere else, this guy. So please leave questions for us behind. Make comments. And next time we will carry on. We'll hear further stories. We'll answer your questions, things like that. Daniel, thank you. Thank you so much. I really want to do another episode because he's also involved now in something which Rebecca and myself are very, very interested in. And that's using natural plants, how it should be in nature. That's why he's sitting in a tent there in France. I'm sitting in a hotel room in Phuket. Wonderful technology. Thank you, Zoom. And to all of you out there, guys, please come and talk to us. Talk to me and Fossey or whoever else comes along as presenters. Let these stories come out. It's for your own good as well. You will feel better after you spoke to us. You're not alone. Don't let anybody tell you you're alone. It's a lie. It's from Satan himself. You're not alone. There's many men like you who wants to know more, who are interested in you. The days when we came back and people were like, grensvechting, how fuck hulle work. Let me tell you why. We've got more than 1 million each in 1 year on this show. That shows to me people want to hear your story. It's important. I get letters from children. Hulle sê vir my, oom, ons het so 'n bereiding, hulle noem dit 'n hoed. Ons het so 'n berei gevind. Ons weet nie wat dit is nie, kan oom vir ons sê. I get letters like that all the time because no one else is gonna, tell our stories the way we can tell it. So thank you, Daniel. Until we meet again, all of you, God bless.
Thanks, Chris.